morning, I am at Russian Gulch State Park in, not Russia, California. Russian Gulch State Park, to what do we attribute such a interesting name? That's because Russian Gulch State Beach gets its name from the Russian River Valley, which gets its name from the Russian River. Now, why are these things also Russian? It's because all of this used to be Russia. Russian-American expansion started sometime around the 16th century with Russian explorers crossing over into Alaska. Remember Sarah Palin when she said that she could see Russia from her house? Well, the Russians, they could see Sarah Palin too. And they were able to cross over into Alaska in search of furs. Why would they need furs? Well, their hats, duh. So in order to be able to make those big fuzzy hats, they needed access to big fuzzy pelts. And they were able to get those here on the American continent. This relationship remained the same, however, until 1799, when my dude, Pyotr I, Peter the Great, comes to power. One of my favorite czars ever, because he was one of the greatest political and social innovators of Russia. Peter the Great, when he comes into power, he realizes Russia, man, we've been doing this game all wrong. Because Russia was still tied to the old empire model. They thought that in order to be able to create an empire, they needed to contiguously conquer. That meant that if I wanted this piece of land over here, I need to conquer my neighbor first. That's how you were able to create these huge empires like the Mongol Empire, the Roman Empire, etc. But Peter the Great looks over into a country like Britain. He's like, whoa, this small-ass little country is able to conquer all these places all over the world. How are they able to do that? And the answer is capitalism. Because what the European countries were doing at that time was they were establishing trade relationships. That meant that they didn't have to conquer through armies. They could conquer through money. So, Peter the Great founds the Russian-American Company, the Russo-Amerikanskaya Kompania, and using this company, he establishes the first ever permanent Russian settlements in the Americas, the majority of which are in the state of Alaska, but one of them is down here in California at Fort Ross, and we're about to go see that right now. But the answer as to why it is that this place here is called Russian Gulch, why is this area called the Russian River Valley? And why is there even a Russian river, which in Russian was known as the Reka Slavyanskaya, which is the Slavic river, but whatever? Because this whole area used to be part of the Russian kind of giddy because this windmill behind me looks like Baba Yaga made it, right? But no chicken feed. But I am here at Fort Ross, built in 1812 by the Russian Empire, specifically by the Russian-American Company. And this was during a time when the world stage was ripe for Russia to make its move. The United States has already declared independence from Great Britain. There's the War of 1812. There's a lot of things happening all over the world, and Russia's like, hey, you know what? People are not looking at California, and this is the time that we should come in and move in. So by 1812, about 128 Russians come to Fort Ross to establish the first permanent establishment here. Now, you might want to ask yourself, wait a second, didn't that land belong to someone? Yes, it was to the Native Americans, but the Spanish were also claiming this land. However, the Spanish were kind of lazy colonizers in a way. So although the Spanish were claiming the north of California, which back then used to be called Alta California, as opposed to Baja California, Lower California and Upper California, they hadn't really actually built anything up here, right? So the mission system which the Spaniards used to form their colony, none of them had actually been built far north of San Francisco. So the Russians were like, hey, there are no missions north of San Francisco. No one's watching this land. Let's come in and let's build a fort. So right now I'm in the Rochev house, which is the only original house that is still here made by Russians. It's super cool because it kind of feels like you're in a dacha, which I think they usually translate as like summer cottage. If you ever spent your summers in a dacha in Russia, it felt very much like this. There's flies in here. It's very Russian countryside chic, you know? But very cool because it really does feel like a Russian building, as you can see on the outside too, with the windows, how they're constructed. Yeah, this is like my Disneyland here. This is super cool. It's a Russian city that's here in California. So this is the Chasovnia, and I'm going to be walking backwards out of here because in Russian Orthodox tradition, you are not supposed to turn your back on the icons. And so they still have Russian Orthodox services here in this chapel to honor the hundreds of Russians who passed away here. And they still have a kladbishe, which is a cemetery that's close by, where the fallen ancestors of Russians, the native Alaskans that helped them found this city, and the people they called Creoles back in the day, who were mixed Russian with Native American. So the Russians did an awesome job at finding this exact spot because it is a natural fortress. The coast here is extremely rocky, but they built their fort right off of this gulch over here. And one road leads up to the fortress behind me. With that watch post right there. Beyond that point, mountains. So the fortress was an extremely difficult thing to get to. And if you were not a friend of the Russian American company, you would probably be stopped very quickly. Alaskans here. They also had guns and cannons, and so the Spanish did not try to kick them out. But during this time, something happened that completely changed the history of this place, which was that the sea otter population was being overhunted, and as a result, this fortress came into decline. There were also a couple other things happening during this time too that make this place a really interesting spot in world history, because right after that, the Mexican Republic was formed and won their independence from Spain, meaning that in 1821 the Russians still had Fort Ross here, and it had this fort for about 20 years. The Russians were trying to keep their territory here, even though there were increasing territory claims from Britain and the United States at this point. The manager of the Russian American company actually went to Mexico City and tried to negotiate a truce with the new Mexican Republic. The Mexican Republic said, listen, you know, the Spanish always said y'all were squatting on our land, and we'll let you stay, but you have to recognize us as an independent country, which would mean Russia would be pissing off Spain. And Tsar Alexander was too chicken shit to do so, which completely changed the timeline of history. Had Russia recognized Mexico as a republic at that time, this might still be part of the Russian Empire, and it could have completely changed the course of world history. The Russians could not find any other alliances, so they ended up selling off the land to a farmer who lived here, and that farmer happened to be American. As a result, that American farmer ended up bringing in a lot of other Americans, which all ended up helping in the concerted effort to increase American Western expansion and create California as an American state. So this small little place here on the coast of California could have been a complete game changer in the Russian, Mexican, Spanish, U.S., British world history stage. Alright, so that about concludes our tour of Fort Ross, Russia's first settlement in the United States. But a couple of end notes. So first one is that although it might seem like Russia was a victim of geopolitical circumstances, the Russian-American company was extremely badly run. In almost a ironic allegory of today's Russia, the most capable people were not the ones that were given the positions to manage this extremely important state-run enterprise. Instead, it was given to cronies and given to the children of the nobility who did not know how to run the actual company itself. That's about it. I'm going to try to get out of here. Fort Ross, first Russian settlement here in the United States and an important part of Ruskaya Amerika. Stalin, say like and subscribe.